Nice fly watching Tim Duncan. Rebound by Richardson, who comes the other way for the Phoenix Suns. Into Jefferson. Jason Richardson.
Sometimes all you need to do is get a layup. That's what happened with Jason Richardson. He loves to leak out on the break. Leads a Phoenix Suns 6-0 run. He gets a layup, knocks down a jump shot, and Greg Popovich wants to talk it over.
Back in Phoenix, the Suns on an 8-0 run, up 25-14. Now, these Suns fans love to hate the Spurs, and Alvin Gentry told me I don't blame them. 4 of their last 5 playoff runs were ended by the Spurs, and they have these shirts here that say, "It's our turn. Beat the Spurs." Tony Parker told me, "I love this atmosphere. I love when people pull against me. Makes me want to play that much harder." I don't think Tony Parker would want to be standing where I'm standing, Kevin, but I think he loves this atmosphere with guys pulling against him.
Well, Kevin, the two numbers are that 05 and 07. That's really what sticks out with the Phoenix Suns. That's why the fans are nervous, because both of those years the Phoenix Suns had the home court advantage. The Spurs came in and won game 1 and went on and won those series. That's why I think tonight is so important for these Phoenix Suns, is to get this and go up 1-0. As I said before, the Spurs have had 4 days rest. They're going to have to come back on a lot shorter rest to play game 2.
George Hill has just come in for Ginobili. Nash defending Hill after watching Duncan down low, and that stops a drought of about 3 minutes from the floor for the San Antonio Spurs, who have trailed by as many as 11. They've not led tonight in this 9-point game. Phoenix at 65%. Richardson puts it over Jefferson with the offensive rebound. Pulled down by Stoudemire. That is the second offensive rebound for the Phoenix Suns and the 5th overall for Amari. It's Nash covered. Look at the defense by George Hill.
Nice job that time getting their hands up. You saw Duncan just sort of followed Nash all the way to the basket, and then George Hill really closed nicely to get a double team.
Go flat, go flat, go flat.
Amari's watching Duncan. Nash is bumped into by Hill on the fly. Playoffs make reputations. Playoffs usually have a player that is showcased. This George Hill, as we take a look at seconds ago in Nash, with Nash picking up his first personal foul. Some nice double defense there.
Well, you saw what Duncan did. He just sort of, went side by side there with Nash, take away that jump shot until George Hill could square him up, and then Duncan then tried to get back to his own man, and Nash made a mistake. You don't see him do it a lot, but he got the ball up over his head to try to pass in traffic, and just the guy smothered him there and forced a turnover.
Blair comes in for Duncan. Barbosa comes in for Phoenix for Jason Richardson. But finishing up my point on Hill, he was the breakout player. These are where reputations are made. This kid made a nice name for himself in that first round.
Well, you think about all the injuries that the Spurs had last year, Kevin, and sometimes you find a player. And I thought last year when they signed Roger Mason Jr., he did a nice job with the injuries to Parker Ginobili, as did George Hill. They got time maybe they would not have gotten otherwise. And so now the Spurs are a deeper team with Parker back and Ginobili back. They could put Roger Mason in the game, who played well. His minutes were way down, and I thought he had a very good year last year for the Spurs.
Robinson comes in for Stoudemire. That's the other change. Doug told you about the switch, and here's a move inside by Steve Nash, who scoops it home and comes up with his 13th point in the first quarter.
Watch how he splits that pick and roll, Kevin. He is a master. I mean, this guy, watch him little left crossover, then watch him split it, take it between his legs. I mean, you've got to close down that area and not give him any room to split that pick and roll, Kevin. I think that's the toughest thing now. When you see these guards, if you give them any kind of daylight, they will split that pick and roll and get to the basket. I mean, Dwayne Wade is brilliant at it. You see LeBron James, some of these guards are so good at just being able to get to the basket with just a little daylight.
Juwan Blair just picked up his first personal. The driving Tony Parker in the lane. Blair tries to get it. Nash comes out of the pack. Nash for 2. Rebound by Blair. It's picked up, and here comes Parker the other way. Parker's pretty good in this transition game from a San Antonio standpoint. Flying in the paint, guards in the lane for the Spurs.
And look what he did. He split the pick and roll, just exactly what Nash had done. I just spoken about how these guards can do that in the NBA. Spurs, the Suns looking at a 30-point quarter here if they can get a score.
Nash around Bonner. Off of Bonner's foot. vacuumed in by Blair. No fouls to give either way. Here comes Hill. Difference of about 8 seconds. Game clock and shot clock winding down our first quarter here from Phoenix, Arizona. Tony Parker, 1 of 3, 7 minutes. Defended by Dudley. Oh, what a move by Tony Parker. Against a good defender, too, Dudley.
There's too much speed and quickness for Dudley.
Nash now, seconds remain in the first quarter. Parker was there, counted for 2 and a foul. George Hill. Now they're going to discuss and see if indeed, they're going to count it.
Remember what I talked about, Kevin. One of the things when you play the Phoenix Suns, you want to try to keep them under 30 points in a quarter. That means they've got the pace of the game up. In the 4 wins against Portland, they had 6 30-point quarters. In the 2 losses, they had none. So the first quarter was played at the pace of the Phoenix Suns.
Hill picks up his second. What about the opposing teams, Doug, wanting to make Nash a score, which is what he has been. Now with 17 points here in the first.
Well, in the Portland series, they did not do nearly as well. Tonight, they're off to a great start. Let's see how it plays itself out.
Hill at the buzzer. As the Phoenix Suns shoot 59%. They get 17 out of Nash. And Doug, there's your 30-point quarter for the Phoenix Suns. They get 31. We'll keep track of that. When they score that much, they usually go on to a win. They're at home and hosting the 7th-seeded.
Marty sided with Greg Popovich. And, Coach, do you change anything to slow down Steve Nash a little bit there?
Well, we got to guard him better, that's for sure. He's really had a great start.
They were able to score 30 in that quarter. Do you need to slow the pace a little bit for your liking?
No, I don't think the pace had anything to do with it. Our bad play had a lot to do with it.
All right, Pop.
And the Phoenix Suns shot, Doug, 59% in that first quarter. Second unit is in for the Phoenix Suns. Here comes Ginobili out there with Parker, starting things off in the backcourt for the San Antonio Spurs.
You're going to see a couple matchups. That's what Dudley on Ginobili. Is he quick enough to keep him in front of him? We got Dragic now playing Tony Parker.
Ginobili, Blair, Parker splitting the defense. Foul is there. Blair gets it. Shot clock violation. Doug, there is a distinct difference between the starters for the Phoenix Suns and what the second unit brings.
They bring a lot of energy. They're very defensive-minded, and they're very good three-point shooting group. You have Barbosa, you have Dudley out there, Channing Frye, Dragic, all very good shooters, and then you have Amundsen on the board. So this is a very high-energy, defensive-minded group, and you really got to get to that three-point line.
Barbosa with the drive on Blair. Snaps it outside to Dragic, working on Tony Parker.
Boy, he has played well, Dragic. He got off to a slow start early in the playoffs, and Alvin Gentry stuck with him. And in games 5 and 6, he was terrific.
Alvin had to kind of build his confidence after a rugged first year for Dragic.
Well, that's sometimes what happens. I think a lot of that, too. You had him coming over to the United States. You had the culture change, obviously, a lot of different changes he had to play through, vocabulary, all these things. And Dragic has really been a real key for this team off the bench this year. He's kept Steve Nash's minutes down to about 31 a game. And Alvin Gentry feels very comfortable having him on the floor with Steve Nash. And once again, you've got Tony Parker, who is so good. The hesitation. See, he uses that shoulder, creates the contact, a little kiss off the glass. And Kevin, you talked about it a while ago, when you play the San Antonio Spurs, you better keep those guards out of the paint, just like the San Antonio Spurs must keep Steve Nash out of the paint. When they get in there, bad things happen for your defense.
That might surprise some people that Parker now comes off the bench. He does not start.
Well, I think since his hand injury, the Pop likes having the guy come off the bench and score. Remember, he used to do that with Ginobili. When you don't have a bench, sometimes you got to create one. And that's what he did a few years ago with Ginobili. With Parker with his injury, that's what he's done. Parker likes. As long as he's playing the fourth quarter, Parker does not mind. And you can see that it's 23-6 in the one series, 15-3, then 23-6. That's how important they have been getting into the paint points-wise against this Suns team.
Barbosa against Blair. That's a matchup that they'll take all day long in Phoenix.
Yeah, that speed of Leandro Barbosa. He loves going to the left.
Parker just picked up his first. Dragic before picked up his first, and Dudley just picked up his second moments ago. Little house cleaning there. Here is Bonner. Working by Frye into Amundsen off the bench, Matt Bonner.
That's okay, though. You want to run him off that three-point line. Don't let him get his